Welcome everyone. We are live with another episode of Level Up Law, where every Tuesday at noon, South Carolina Legal Services levels up your legal knowledge about an area of law that we practice in. I'm Susan Ingalls, here with our producer, Kenneth Elliott from our IT department, and you are viewing Attorney Elliott Tait in our Charleston office. One of our great attorneys down there and our education law unit head, doing great work with that, but also handles a lot of cases on the topic that we have for today. Elliott is going to be reviewing unemployment benefits during COVID-19 and overpayments in particular. But before we get started, we do need to remind you that the presentation today and what you'll hear is not legal advice. It's just general information for the public. We are lawyers, but we're not your lawyer. If you need the help of a lawyer, you can always call our intake line here at South Carolina Legal Services or apply online. And as always, that information will be provided at the end of today's presentation. And also, just so you don't worry about taking notes today, we will post the Level Up Law to the Level Up Law playlist, the presentation from today on our YouTube channel. It usually goes up in about 24 hours because our producer, Kenneth Elliott, is very on the ball. So thanks to him for helping us out with that. So for today, if you have questions, you should definitely put them in the question box, not the chat box, but the question box. And Elliott will be happy to try to give you an answer to those. Now, if you'll check out our YouTube channel after we post this and share it with anyone that you know who might have interest in the topic, we appreciate you doing that. And other than that, we are going to get started. I'm going to let Mr. Elliott Tait take it away. Thanks, Elliott.
Thank you, Susie, and thanks to Kenneth. Two of my favorites here at Legal Services. Hello from North Charleston. You get a nice view of my ceiling here and a little bit of sunshine here peeking through. And I guess a goose. You get to see a goose. Wait, here we go. There it is. There will be a quiz on what's in my office later at the end. So Stephanie Vanderhorst, who's our unit head, has asked me to step in and talk to you all about unemployment benefits. The first half of this, the first 10 or 15 minutes or so, just an overview of unemployment benefits. If you're watching this on YouTube or something and you don't want just an overview, you want specific information about overpayments, then skip ahead. But if you want a little premiere on unemployment benefits, here we go. So, unemployment benefits during COVID-19, overpayments, that's the name of this presentation. The purpose of unemployment benefits, unemployment insurance is how it's couched in the statutes. Economic insecurity due to unemployment is a serious menace to health, morals, and welfare of the people of this state. It's an important thing for our elected officials to maybe revisit now. Involuntary unemployment requires appropriate action by the General Assembly to prevent its spread and to lighten its burden, which so often falls with crushing force upon the unemployed worker and his family. Again, so the spirit of unemployment benefits is a just and a real lovely spirit as enumerated in our law. I think for a lot of folks, a lot of clients of mine and a lot of folks that have applied for benefits and been denied or approved or had to go through the hassle, maybe don't feel that kind of loving brotherhood, sisterhood, looking out for each other that the statute sets forth. But that's the soul of our unemployment system. What are they? Unemployment insurance, it's a joint state federal program providing cash benefits to eligible workers, right? So you're not getting food, you're not getting milk or cheese, you are getting cash in your bank account, right? So because then you take that in place of your prior wages and you are paying the light bill, you're making your car payment, you're paying your rent, right? So because just because you find yourself unemployed doesn't mean your bills automatically stop, right? So each state administers its own program according to certain established federal guidelines. Your benefit amount, so the amount that you get each week, is based upon your wages earned in 4 of the last 5 quarters that you've worked. It's a strange algorithm calculation that we do, but essentially you have to earn a certain amount of money to qualify. The maximum benefit for each week is $326. No matter how much money you were making before, that's the maximum amount that you can get each week. That is pre-tax, by the way. And oh, don't you believe that the tax man is going to be coming and taking his share of that $326. So you will get less than that. The maximum number of weeks for just general UI, this is not looking at the special programs that have come from the CARES Act and the like. We will take a look at that here in a second, but this is just basic UI. And that's where we are now, right? Because we don't have any current federal programs funded in this state as of the end of June. So this is it. 326 max for 20 weeks. The total max pre-tax is $6,520. How do you become eligible? In addition to making a certain amount of money in the last 4 quarters, you've got to be available for, and actively seeking work. I've seen issues with, like, if you, on your questionnaire when you're applying for benefits, if you either mistakenly or intentionally check a box saying that you have transportation issues, then the Department of Employment and Workforce, who I might call the department in this presentation later, I might call the unemployment office, it's the same thing. They will disqualify you because you are not able or available to work because you have a transportation issue. That's just an example of one of the many ways that the unemployment office can and does disqualify people for benefits. The department requires you to file a weekly claim by telephone or on their website. So each week you certify, I'm still unemployed. You have to certify that you're completing your job searches. That's this next one. You got to do job searches through the department's website so that they know exactly what you're searching for and that you are actively searching for work. You also, when you file your weekly claim, you got to say if you earn any money. So if you picked up a couple of jobs mowing your neighbor's lawn, that counts as income. You got to tell them about that, and they will adjust your next week benefits based on that income. And then you must wait 1 week after separation to be eligible for benefits. It's called the waiting week. That's classically how unemployment works. So if you're unemployed for just 1 week, you're not getting benefits because that's just covered in the waiting week. It's a strange thing. It's not like you don't need benefits for a week, but anyway, that's just how they don't pay you for a week. How to apply? You can go online using a computer or smartphone, in case you didn't know how to use the internet. You can call the teleclaim. If you want to bang your head against a wall, you can call them. I can recommend other ways if you want to torture yourself, but that's a way you can do it. The Department of Employment and Workforce may be experiencing a high volume of calls. You know, that's understatement of the year award probably. I will stop myself and caveat this by saying, I've been doing this for years now. I'm frustrated isn't the right word. Take frustration and then add like a 1,000 amounts to it, and that's how I feel about our system and the Department of Employment and Workforce. So that's a little bit of the shadiness that you're experiencing here. I'll maybe try and turn it down from like a 9 to like a 6. No promises. The SC work centers were closed because of COVID. Most of those have reopened. So you can check online to see if there's a center near you. There are, those are the good people. They are lovely people who are there typically to help, to help you out. my experience, those are just good folks who want to help you make it through the application process. So if you have issues with a computer because of a disability or age or internet issues, then the SC Work Center should be your option for applying for benefits. Individuals eligible for benefits because of COVID-19. So this is the special unemployment benefits during COVID. Under the normal UI system, the normal state system that was in place, individuals were eligible because their employer stopped operations, you were laid off, your hours were reduced. So that was like a little tweak that we got in the COVID-19 quarantine times, but the state system didn't give any more money or pay any more weeks. So they were still limited to that. And then we got the CARES Act, right? So the CARES Act was passed in 2020 to help address economic devastation caused by the coronavirus pandemic. And we got 3 different programs and pools of money from that. FPUC, PUA, and PEUC. Isn't this fun? So it took me months, maybe even more than a year, to get all these square in my brain and not mix them. And I'm going to try and do my best to not mix it up in this presentation. But FPUC is that lovely thing where you get an additional $600 a week. That was March to July of last year. And then it got renewed in December, but instead of $600 a week, you got $300. So if you were drawing unemployment benefits, then you automatically got a $600 increase March through July of last year. It was a very lovely thing. And then it stopped, got renewed, and Congress decided that poor people didn't need as much money anymore, so they got $300 a week. So that program, like all the programs that were covered under the CARES Act, stopped in June because our governor said, no more money for poor people. PUA, this is a really important program that helps so many people. And it's for essentially 2 types of applicants, of claimants who are unemployed. You've got you're self-employed, you're an independent contractor, you're a gig economy worker. That just means like you work for Uber or Lyft or something like that. And you've got to be eligible for, you are eligible for the weekly benefit amount just like you would under state law. But normally you wouldn't qualify for UI. So this PUA is a pool of money that is reserved for these folks who otherwise wouldn't qualify because they wouldn't have a qualified employer under the statute. So essentially the issue that we'll talk about is, in order to qualify for PUA, you have to not qualify for state unemployment insurance. So you have to be denied UI, have either a separate or concurrent application for PUA, and hopefully get approved for the PUA. We'll talk about why that becomes an issue. So just keep that little piece of info in your brain. So you have to also be ineligible because of COVID. So that's the other pool of people that I'm thinking about, right? So you've got to be out of work because something COVID related. So either you, the easiest one is you've got COVID. So if you're out for a couple weeks, you get PUA because you got COVID. Someone in your house has been diagnosed and you got a quarantine, you qualify for PUA. You're caring for someone who couldn't go to school. So when the school's closed or your daycare is closed and you got to stay home and you're missing work, you qualify for PUA. Quarantining, let's say that you're scheduled to start work, but the place is shut down because of COVID. Then you get PUA, those sorts of things. So that is a lovely program that many people benefited from because they wouldn't have otherwise qualified for unemployment benefits under the state program. PEUC is an extension of benefits to people who were getting state benefits. So you got those 20 weeks of state benefits. 20 weeks is not a long time considering how long COVID's been around. So PEUC came in and continued making payments after that. So you got an initial 13 weeks and then it got renewed again. So there are periods of time that you will get paid, periods of time that you won't, and then periods of time that you'll get paid again. So this is just like the PUA program and the FPUC. This one stopped in June. So we're getting no more federal money to otherwise qualified claimants. That is it. And this is a lovely slide that you can take a look at just to say, if you ever need to figure out what program you qualify for, there's a slide for it. We're not going to go through it because it's very, very useful. So keep it in your brain. If you need to go to this slide later, do it. Let's talk about the appeal process. So initially, as I spill tea into my mustache, a claims adjudicator who's just like a low-level unemployment office employee will take a look at the facts of the case. They're going to call the claimant. So the claimant is the person who's applying for benefits. So the unemployed person. They're going to call them, get some information. They're going to call the employer, get some information. The employer, if they got half a brain, they're going to send in the HR file with all the things that this employee's done wrong. And then that claims adjudicator is going to make a decision as to whether you qualify. If you get denied, you get a notice in the mail. You've got 10 days from the date that letter is mailed to file an appeal. It's really important. If you don't do it within 10 days, then you are done. There's nothing that me or any attorney can do for you unless you were in the hospital. You have a compelling reason why you didn't appeal on time. The way the mail's running, if they send it one day, it's going to take 3, 4, 5 days to get to you. And if it happens on the weekend, I mean, so that clock keeps running. So you get 10 days to file that appeal. You then have a hearing in front of a hearing officer, and that is your one and only opportunity to present evidence to support your case, to get you qualified. That's it. So if you've got any witnesses, you've got any exhibits, any documents, whatever evidence you want to submit, it's got to be submitted then. Let's say you don't win at the tribunal. They're going to issue a decision. And if you don't like it, if you're still denied, then you can appeal that within 10 days to the panel. You get the same rules. Once they mail it, the clock starts, you got 10 days. The panel reviews the record that was developed by the tribunal. So everything that was said at the tribunal was recorded. All the evidence that was admitted is put into the record, and the appellate panel reviews that and makes a decision based on that. You can go to Columbia where they are and make an argument. What I typically do is I just submit a brief on behalf of my client using the record. And if you don't like that decision, then you can appeal it further within 30 days to the administrative law court, which you need a lawyer for. By the way, legal services, we do all these things. If you qualify for legal aid because you're unemployed, we do all this. How to appeal, again, the 10-day deadline is so important. I've had just too many clients who just had a good case, but they missed their 10-day deadline, and it wasn't for a good reason. So please appeal on time. If you are looking for a lawyer to do your appeal for you, just send in the appeal saying that you disagree with the decision. Just get that in and then get a lawyer. Because it's going to take a while for a hearing to be set, right? So just get that appeal in within 10 days. And there's a couple ways to do that. All right. Let's take a pause here. We got any questions, Susie?
No, Elliott, no questions yet. You're doing a great job.
Oh, so happy to hear that.
But we do invite the viewers to put questions in the question box if they have any.
Sweet. Yes, please do that. Please feel free to interrupt us. But now we're going to jump from just a general overview of unemployment benefits and look at overpayments. All right, here's the meat of this presentation. So an overpayment of unemployment benefits generally occurs when you made a mistake, when you're claiming your weekly benefit amounts, you didn't actually meet the eligibility requirements, you didn't do a required work search, you knowingly provided false information, or the unemployment office made a mistake. So you kind of zoom out a little bit. If you got paid a week of unemployment benefits and you, for some reason, did not deserve all of those benefits, either because, to use an example before, you picked up a couple of jobs mowing people's lawns and you earned a couple $100s, and somehow the unemployment office found out about that, then you were overpaid a couple $100s of benefits. Another example, very, very common example, which let's just jump into it now. I kind of alluded to it earlier, is the following, is when the department themselves makes a mistake, it can generate an overpayment. And that is, I don't know, 90% of the overpayments that I see. So let's take you back in time to March of 2020. Everything shut down. People were out of work. And folks that weren't fortunate enough, like me and my colleagues, to be able to, well, one, be a salaried employee, two, to have a lovely IT department to get us set up to work remotely, and three, just to have, a system of administration and leadership that supported us doing that. We were fortunate enough to do that, but a lot of folks didn't have that, right? So you no longer have work, you no longer have money coming in. So you apply for benefits. You call them up and you go, sorry, I've never done this before. I've always worked my entire life. But I understand I'm eligible for benefits because my employer told me to apply. So here I am, I'm applying. And the person on the other line is probably a brand new employee because they're in March, all through the current day, there is a huge influx, unprecedented influx of unemployment applications. So if you could get through to someone, you were lucky enough to get through after waiting for hours or days on hold, it was probably a brand new employee who didn't know what the heck they were doing. So they look at your case and they go, yeah, it looks like, yeah, you qualify, you qualify for unemployment benefits. Great, I'm gonna go ahead and, yeah, we're gonna approve you. Great, okay, all right. Next caller, because I've got 3,000 people in my queue right now. So I'm gonna approve you and move on. So folks got approved and they got their money, and that's lovely, right? Well, eventually, after the CARES Act got in place, and in the fall, early winter, folks were having to kind of recertify their benefits. A lot of that was because they needed to prove their identity. There were allegations of fraud and identity theft with unemployment benefits. So Congress wanted the Department of Employment and Workforce to just make sure that these folks are getting their benefits. So you recertify. And at that time, the unemployment office was taking a closer look at all these cases. And they look at it and they go, you know what? You actually don't qualify. So the $20,000 of benefits that you've been getting from the unemployment office, because we told you that you were eligible, we actually overpaid you. And I know that you were using that money to pay your rent, to pay your car insurance, your gas, your food, the stuff that human beings pay. But we're gonna need that money back. Thanks and sorry. That's what an overpayment is. And that is a overwhelming majority of the folks that I see have that scenario. They get approved, they get told later, oh, actually, we made a mistake. You don't qualify. Now, a lot of those folks don't qualify for UI, but they do qualify for PUA. But that's not how complex the department is. They say you were qualified for UI back in March of 2020. It's now December of 2020, and you shouldn't have been qualified for that. So you pay us that money back. And you go, well, why didn't you just tell me I should have applied for PUA? Oh, I don't know. I mean, you should have. Yeah, but I'm just a worker. I was relying on the department and your employees to like tell me which one to do. Why didn't you tell me the right one? I don't know. But could you get us that $20,000 now? So that is where we are with overpayments. Now, overpayments are classified as fraudulent or non-fraudulent. Let's take a look at that. Non-fraudulent overpayments. Benefits mistakenly paid to an individual that is not the result of the claimant knowingly providing false information, right? So the department screwed up or you made a mistake. So when you get an overpayment, you will get a letter from the department saying whether or not it's fraudulent or non-fraudulent. Most of them are going to be just department error, so it's going to be non-fraudulent. A lot of them come back as fraudulent. That's kind of scary. We're going to talk about why. But all of that can be appealed and should be appealed all within 10 days. So non-fraudulent overpayments must be repaid, even though the claimant's not at fault. Doesn't matter. We're going to talk about waivers, but basically the law is if you got overpaid, even if it was the department's fault, you got to pay him back. So fraudulent overpayment is you got to pay the money back plus 33% of the original debt. So they ding you for stealing money from the department, essentially. You can also be criminally prosecuted for it. So Stephanie listed a couple of examples. So you earn wages that you didn't report. So let's say you earn $500 one week. You don't tell the unemployment office about it when you file for your next week. So you got paid unemployment benefits even though you were employed. So they're going to get that money back. So you can also be assessed an additional disqualification period for 10 to 52 weeks. So let's say you get another job, you work, X amount of hours, you earn the requisite amount of money to qualify for benefits, and you get fired or you leave or something and you apply for benefits based on your new employer. If there's this disqualification period in place because prior fraud, then you will not qualify. So we talked about the overpayment notification. They must notify you in writing of the overpayment. Copy is available on your My Benefits portal under the My Documents tab. It's got to have the following information: the amount you were overpaid, any penalty fees, it explains why you were overpaid, instructions on how to request a payment plan, and gives you the right to appeal or apply for a no-fault waiver of the overpayment. So in my experience, a lot of folks that were getting these were getting conflicting numbers. You get like an overpayment notification with one number, and the next day you get like a different number, and then 3 days would go by and you get another overpayment with a different number. And there's some sense to that, but ultimately not really. I know of folks, my colleagues who have had hearings where essentially the issue is, can you explain to me like how much my client was overpaid? The hearing officer looks at it and goes, yeah, I don't know. I can't tell. Well, because we got 7 overpayment notices with different numbers. Yeah, I see that. And give us a second. I don't know. So if that's you're not going crazy. There's something happening at the department behind the scenes where their numbers are just not adding up. What else? Let's move on to this one. Repaying an overpayment. Overpayments can be repaid either in full because you've got an extra $20,000 lying around. So you're like, here you go. All is forgiven. Thank you, unemployment office, for your help. Or you can set up monthly payments. And there's ways to do that via the My Benefits portal. You can mail them a check. So failing to repay an overpayment, man, this makes me so angry. If you do not pay the debt in full once you've been notified of an overpayment, then the Department of Employment and Workforce can take action to recover the debt, including garnishing your wages once you're employed again and making some money. They can take that money from your tax refund and deduct any money that you're owed from the state. They've got to give you another notice about this, by the way. They can't just take it. They will give you the overpayment notice if you don't file a waiver and if you don't appeal it, which, by the way, you should do both of those within 10 days. No matter what, just please do that and get a lawyer. If you don't, they will send you another notice saying, we're going to send your debt to collections and we're going to take your tax return and we're going to garnish your wages. So overpayment can be discharged in bankruptcy. Even if the debt is discharged, the unemployment office has the right to divert future benefits to repay the debt. So let's say, again, you get a new job, you start making money, you become separated from employment, you apply for benefits again. They go, oh, you owe us that $20,000 from 2020 when we screwed up. So give us some of that. So we're gonna rob Peter to pay Paul, essentially. So there's more stuff about bankruptcy court. I don't know anything about that. So read that. I'm learning it too. So there we are. Appealing an overpayment. This is important. You have the right to appeal the determination that you were overpaid. You gotta, again, within 10 days. You can do it by fax or mail. Please do it. Please appeal it. You'll have a hearing on whether or not you were actually paid that amount of money by the department and why. So please do that. Almost more important than that is this. So prior to 2020, we rarely saw overpayments because the department wasn't screwing these up as bad as they were in 2020. But in 2020 and continuing on to this year, we have had a ton of overpayments. So we have had to essentially learn how to do waivers well. And let me tell you, I think this is a ripe area of law for lawyers to practice in because there's just not a lot of law on it. Essentially, if your overpayment is non-fraudulent and repayment would cause extraordinary financial hardship, which of course it would, you can apply for a waiver. They'll send you a form to fill out about your monthly bills, your necessities, that sort of thing, and they will almost definitely deny you initially. But within 10 days, say it with me, within 10 days, I will appeal that decision and get myself a lawyer, and there will be a hearing. So just like all issues before the department, they issue a decision, you appeal it, you get a hearing. You can present testimony and evidence and everything. And you get to, essentially the regulations on waivers allow the department to, in their discretion, to waive these things, especially if it's the department's own fault. And I'm thinking, from my perspective, if you got paid benefits due to no fault of your own, and you relied on them to make basic payments, like we talked about, to pay your mortgage or your rent and your car payment and to keep your kids fed, there should be a waiver of that overpayment. If not 100%, certainly a significant portion. But again, it's in the department's discretion. So I think you should get a lawyer to fight these, and I think we can win these. So recurring issues, due is garnishing wages of claimants with overpayments without providing notice. They have to give you notice. This is a due process issue. Before they can take your money, they have to give you notice that they're going to do it. They have to give you the opportunity to have a hearing on it. But again, you got a 10-day window. So that has been an issue that colleagues of mine have seen. Claimant is told that they should not file an appeal by a due representative and should file a waiver of the overpayment instead. Oh gosh, this happens so often. Where again, you as the claimant, you don't know the process. You're not a lawyer. You're a welder. So you call them and you go, hey, employee of the Department of Employment and Workforce, I'm going to rely on your knowledge and expertise. And they go, yeah, you got overpaid. Sorry. So don't file an appeal. And maybe like they'll say you can't file an appeal, so just do a waiver. Or they'll tell you the inverse. They'll say, yeah, you can appeal that. And don't won't worry about the waiver. They always deny waivers, so that's just not worth your time. So, claimant provides documents pursuant to a request for information, but receive a determination of ineligibility for failure to provide. Oh gosh, this one comes up a lot too. So, in the fall, early winter of last year, this is like this new requirement where, and even into the spring, the department just asks for your passport, your ID, just to confirm that you are who you are. And sometimes you wouldn't get them. And all of a sudden you get like a denial. You go, wait, what? What do you mean? For what? I didn't respond to, what are you talking about? I didn't respond to what? I got nothing. And then you respond. And of course it takes them forever to reinstate your benefits. Oops. Claimant was initially approved for UI, but should have been approved for PUA. Remember? We talked about that one. So that's a scary time because you're owed $20,000 while your PUA claimant is now pending. Because you got approved for UI. You shouldn't have been approved for UI, but you got approved for UI. You didn't know to apply for PUA. And then the department takes another look at it later and says, oops, sorry. So, the answer to that is eventually, hopefully you get approved for PUA and they say, okay, you're approved for PUA. We're gonna take the money from that pot and pay off your overpayment from the UI. That's typically how it works. It's not as smooth and orderly and timely as you'd expect, because while you're trying to get PUA benefits approved, you've got this judgment of $20,000 against you. And that's just not, that's not a lovely place to be in, right? When the government is demanding $20,000 from you, that's just not a lovely place. What should the claimant do? Well, if you remember anything from this, just file an appeal within 10 days. Please, please, please file an appeal. Contact due for assistance. That's funny. That's, maybe. Sure. At the very least, you have a record that you called, and you can tell a hearing officer, hey, I called you guys, and I was told this. And number 3, of course, seek assistance from an attorney. We, because of the number of cases, we have become more and more proficient at these kinds of cases. We've even had to rope in other attorneys from other areas to say, hey, we've got so many unemployment cases, we need to train you to do these. So we have a lot of lovely, brilliant attorneys all across the state that can help you with overpayments, with waivers, and with just general unemployment questions. So there's our intake office number, and you can also apply online at our website. If for some reason you've been served with court papers, you've got a deadline coming up, go on our website and find your local office. We have, 9 offices all across the state. So, if you're in the Charleston area, then it might be the Charleston area. If you're up in Myrtle Beach, we got a Conway office, or Florence, or shoot, do I have to name all of them now? Because I started naming some of them. Let's see, Orangeburg, Greenwood, Columbia, Rock Hill, Spartanburg, Greenville. I get them all? Don't tell me. That is it. This is not my name or my position, but this is where I work. So 2 out of 4 ain't bad. And Susie, I guess this is where you do your thing. Bye.
That is correct, Elliott. We don't have any questions for you to answer. You did such an effective job covering all that material with these great slides that Stephanie Vanderhorst, also in our office there in Charleston, had put together. and she was unable at the last minute to join us today, and Elliott stepped in like the trooper that he is and filled in for her. And this was a great presentation. Elliott, thank you so much. I do want to remind our listeners that when we post the recording of today's webinar on our YouTube channel, we will include the slides. You'll see that in the comments or the description below the recording that we post. So you will be able to access those slides there on our YouTube channel. So yeah, here on the screen now, and that will be on the slides that you can download as well, is all of our contact information here at Legal Services. And as Elliott said, we handle these kind of cases quite a bit. So we do invite you, if you have this type of a case, definitely apply for our assistance. You can call, as Elliott said, if you've got a deadline, you can go to the local office. You can also apply online. And we actually have a Level Up Law episode that gives you tips for how to do the best online application that you can do. We also want to remind you that we have all these wonderful resources on various websites and social media posts that we do. So we're always putting out all kinds of great information for the public, and we appreciate you all checking that out. Now, I want to thank Elliott Tait again for such an excellent presentation from our Employment Law Unit, and thanks to you and our audience for tuning in today. We really appreciate when folks tune in, whether it's live or checking us out on the YouTube channel. Now, I will say, if you found this helpful today and you know it might be helpful to others, as I mentioned before, go to our YouTube channel tomorrow at South Carolina Legal Services and click that button to share the broadcast. We want as many people, as I said, as possible to get this important information. And while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe for more. If you sign up for the notifications while you're there, you'll get a notification each week when we post that new episode. So that's really important to us. That's all we have for today. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Level Up Law on Tuesday at noon. Thanks for tuning in today, everybody, on Level Up Law. Thanks for Elliott for a great presentation, and to our producer, Kenneth Elliott, for his work behind the scenes. That concludes today's webinar.